50% of adults who are chronically homeless had their first experience of homelessness as a youth.
There's one girl that said she was in and out of over 50 different placements.
Yeah.
How do you grow up like that?
And then how do you trust and how do you believe? Nearly 80% of the young people who come through our doors are people of color. It really is our obligation to take care of our young people. I don't want to be part of a society that doesn't. We're here for you and we're not giving up on you.
LGBTQ kids often get thrown away by their parents.
Absolutely.
And they're not even reported as missing. Human traffickers go into a city.
We have young people that come to our site and let us know that they can't leave because they're concerned that there's a trafficker looking for them. And the only shelter in West LA for young people was closed.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah. Really, the root cause of youth homelessness is...
This episode is sponsored by Pulse for Good. Real change starts with listening. Pulse helps organizations get honest feedback from the people they serve. To learn more, visit pulseforgood.com/invisible people. Today we're talking about youth homelessness, a crisis that often gets overlooked but has lifelong consequences. In Los Angeles alone, more than 3,000 young people are experiencing homelessness. Many come out of foster care or the juvenile justice system, and far too often, LGBTQ youth and youth of color are disproportionately impacted. My guest is Erika Hartman, Chief Executive Officer of Safe Place for Youth, better known as SPY. What started as a small volunteer effort in Venice has grown into 9 sites across Los Angeles County. SPY provides housing, drop-in centers, mental health and substance use services, education, and job support, all rooted in trust and connection. In this conversation, Erika and I talk about what actually works to help young people off the streets, the challenges of community opposition, and why prevention and youth-specific services are critical if we're ever going to stop the pipeline into chronic adult homelessness.
I love your organization. I have a very fond memory. Allison, back before you even had a facility, and she's the founder, right?
Yes.
You had a social media volunteer at the time, had noticed me. We're talking 2010. I mean, the infancy, if you would.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful to see how you've grown. And Safe Place for Youth now even has a new building.
Yes, absolutely. We are expanding across the county, and we actually now have 9 sites.
Whoa!
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need the full update now.
Absolutely. I'm happy to provide it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I came to work in homeless services. I started out as a marriage and family therapist, and originally thought I was going to do private practice. But as I was doing my internship, working with young people in the juvenile justice system, I really got connected to understanding some of the root causes of homelessness. And then I went to work in the child welfare system, and just seeing the pipelines that contribute to youth homelessness, I just really felt called to working directly in this field. And when I was working at an organization that was providing services to young people in the child welfare system, we were actually subcontracting to Safe Place for Youth for their pregnant and parenting case managers. So I got to see Safe Place for Youth in 2015 when it had just opened its first site.
Yeah.
And after going to work as the chief program officer at the Downtown Women's Center, I was really feeling called to reconnecting to working with young people and all the opportunity and potential that they have. So when their recruiter reached out, it really felt like it had come full circle to take on this position at Safe Place for Youth.
Wow. The program, from my understanding, is that, house people that have a spare bedroom would take in youth.
Yeah.
So that they're not in a shelter setting or they're not out on the streets. I thought that was a wonderful program.
Yeah, that's the Host Homes program. And
You still doing it?
We are still doing it, but one of the concerns that we have in this particular moment is that we're seeing deprioritization and defunding of youth homeless services, and that's one of the programs that has been cut from the recent recommendation on youth funding. So we're actively advocating to retain programs like that.
Well, tell me about youth homelessness, especially here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, absolutely. So the recent point-in-time count is just underway for youth homelessness, but last year's point-in-time count found that there were over 3,000 young people experiencing homelessness. And again, some of the main feeders are the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system. And we see disproportionality from the LGBTQ plus community, people of color, and really the root cause of youth homelessness is that they lack a loving, caring adult that could have been there to support them during this particular downturn in their lives.
Is the trend getting worse?
We did see a little bit of an improvement in youth homelessness in the last year. So for the first time, we saw the number go down, but we're really concerned about the inflow, especially as there are all these challenges to funding in this moment.
If I remember correctly, and things have changed, outside of Covenant House, SPY is the only youth service provider.
There are some other youth service providers, but we are one of the larger youth service providers and one that spans, a further reach across the county.
Yeah. So what communities are you in if you've got 9?
Yeah. So we started in Venice. We're now expanded into West LA. We have a site in Echo Park. We have sites in Inglewood for pregnant and parenting, young families. We also have a housing program where young people are the leaseholders and they can find housing anywhere in the county that meets their affordability, and we go directly to them to provide the case management.
Oh my gosh, so kind of like a housing first program.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are a housing first provider. We really recognize that young people need to be indoors before they can stabilize and focus on the long-term futures.
Well, how does that work out? And, I know, but for people listening or watching, because, youth living on their own probably needs some intensive case management.
Absolutely. Many of these young people have never had a job. They've never been connected to mental health. So it's really important for us to be able to connect them to their community. Yeah. And many young people experience trauma even prior to becoming homeless. And certainly the incredible vulnerability they face on the streets compounds that trauma. So they really do need consistency to repair those broken attachments and to rebuild trust.
Yeah, LGBTQ kids often get thrown away by their parents.
Absolutely.
And there's a big percentage of homeless youth that are throwaways.
Yeah.
Not even reported as missing.
Yep, absolutely.
If you run a shelter, a clinic, or a community program, you know how hard it is to get real, honest feedback from the people you serve. Paper surveys get tossed, suggestion boxes are ignored, and the voices that matter most often go unheard. Pulse for Good changes that. Their feedback system includes secure kiosks, wall-mounted units, mobile tablets for outreach workers, toll-free phone numbers, QR codes, and online surveys, so you can reach people right where they're at. Whether it's in a shelter, a clinic, or an encampment, or online, Pulse for Good makes it easy to listen safely, anonymously, and in real time. And with AI-powered sentiment analysis, you don't just get data, you get insight. To learn more, go to pulseforgood.com/invisible. That's pulseforgood.com/invisible.
I used to be well connected with some youth services in Wichita, Kansas, which was the 5th originating city for human trafficking of homeless youth.
Yeah. Yeah. We continue to see the problems of human trafficking. Sometimes we have young people that come to our site and let us know that they can't leave because they're concerned that there's a trafficker looking for them.
Wow.
And it's incredibly heartbreaking, but it really, motivates the team to dig in to ensure their safety. And for us, that's why we are a safe place.
Yeah. For those that don't know, human traffickers go into a city, they con a young male or female, and then take them to a bigger city to human traffic. And it's horrible.
Yeah. A lot of young people are really interested in the entertainment industry. And so people approach them with these kind of opportunities and they think that they're legitimate modeling, legitimate opportunities. And they, end up in these situations that are really hard to extricate from.
Yeah. So last I knew, do you still have the Venice facility?
So one of the exciting things about the Venice facility, which was our flagship site, we just recently redeveloped it into a 4-story building. Our partners, Venice Community Housing, are operating 40 units of housing on the floors 2 through 4. And the drop-in center is our expanded opportunity. So it is our flagship site and it just opened.
Oh my gosh. So you're now also a housing developer and a housing provider.
We are a housing provider. Venice Community
You
Housing
partnered
is
with- yeah.
But we do have a number of housing sites and we're providing emergency housing shelter, transitional housing, and permanent housing throughout the county.
Because you had a clothing store and like a little garden sit area, lots of art programs and computer programs and educational programs. So tell me about your drop-in centers and what programs you offer for people.
Yeah. So our drop-in center is really the heart and hub of our work. Our outreach team goes out into the community, works to connect people. We recognize that young people really need tailored youth-specific strategies. A lot of them have broken trust with adults who failed them. And so in order to create that bridge, things like our Healing Arts program are a, safe, low stakes touch point where they can just come and create, and it starts a conversation with our team about, tell me about that piece of art, and do you have a place to sleep tonight? And, that seems really emotional. Do you have somebody you can talk to about that? So we also just launched our inaugural substance use program. So we now have mental health. We partner to provide medical, dental. We provide meals, basic needs resources. We still have our clothing closet, education and employment, really the gamut of services to meet young people where they are.
That's so awesome. I have a soft spot in my heart for travelers.
Absolutely.
And Venice is a mecca for travelers.
Yeah.
And for people that are listening or watching, there's a subgroup of homeless youth. They're easily recognizable because it's almost like they have a uniform. It becomes community for kids who are thrown away or whatever. The issue is many of them become older homeless people. So as a youth, when it's most important for them to, have a healthy diet, they're eating out of dumpsters or whatever. When you're a younger adult, you need to be building the social skills and educational skills so that you can survive as adult. Yeah. And they don't have that, and then they're just stuck on the street.
Yeah.
But because they're always traveling, they're hard to help.
Yeah. That definitely impacts our ability to relocate youth. And so, like you said, there was a recent study from USC and Corporation for Supportive Housing that found that 50% of adults who are chronically homeless had their first experience of homelessness as a youth. Yeah. And so we recognize that that's a really crucial opportunity to intervene. And we, do have a hard time staying connected if we can't immediately connect them to housing. And so we actually launched a largely privately funded shelter that did not require us to go through the coordinated entry system, so that somebody shows up at our site and doesn't have a bed that night, that we can put them in the shelter while we connect them to longer term resources. Because, if they leave that site that day, we don't know if we'll see them again.
Yeah.
Nearly 80% of the young people who come through our doors are people of color. So, they reflect a lot of the population of the child welfare system.
Wow. I can imagine. I would assume that your background working with kids in that area has helped.
Yeah, I feel like I really saw the potential of young people and was really motivated and inspired to be able to intervene early and see those outcomes. And, I think that it really is our obligation as a society to take care of our young people. And for me personally, I don't want to be part of a society that doesn't. And so I feel like this is an opportunity to make the world we want to see.
What are the challenges of, and then there might be some benefits, or I don't know if I don't know the right words, but I'm trying to compare homeless services to youth or adults, because youth are a very specialized population.
Yeah. And we continue to try to uplift that because really, our transition age youth range is from 12 to 24. And so, technically some of them are adults, but, many of us had, somebody that supported us in our young adulthood. And part of that strategy really has to be understanding that young people need help to trust. And, one of the things that we also try to highlight is that, in youth services, we need to focus on sites that have lower concentration so that we can do, more individualized care. Yeah. So, we really try to not have more than 20 young people in a housing site so that we can make sure that they don't get lost.
That must put extra burden on fundraising because
Yep.
you have to have the staff.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that feels worth doing, but it is an absolute challenge. And, we try to, again, underscore that to funders that it is an investment in the future, to prevent, greater chronic homelessness, but we need to invest on the front end.
Yeah. I'm glad they did the research of homeless youth in adults.
Yeah.
It's something that if you look back through my social media thread, I've been asking for. So I'm glad that finally happened. As I've traveled, I've met multiple homeless youth. Many of them I've interviewed on Invisible People. And what's alarming is the amount of foster care placements.
Yeah.
There's one girl that said she was in and out of over 50 different placements.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was an exaggeration. We all exaggerate. So I asked a social worker, and she says, no, that is actually possible.
Yeah.
And I've talked to, it's more common, that they have 10, 20, 50 different foster homes. How do you grow up like that?
Yeah. And how do you develop a secure attachment, and how do you trust, and how do you believe? And I think that that's, something that we hear a lot from young people is that they don't believe that it's real. They move into their, own apartment and they wonder, when is this going to end? And I think that that's also where young people sometimes test, they test, can I push back? Can I, are you going to abandon me too? And it takes a while. And I think that's one of the challenges is to let people know we're here for you and we're not giving up on you.
Yeah. And there's also, I know there is in adult shelters and adult homeless services, or there should be, because somebody that is transgender or, LGBTQ might not feel comfortable in a general population setting.
Yeah, there are organizations that are specifically providing those types of shelters in recognition that there are safety concerns and that sometimes people feel safer around others that have shared their life experience.
Do you have a story you tell, or a couple of stories?
Yeah, we had a really incredible young couple that came to us, and we did house them through the Host Homes program. And these young people, really were able to stabilize, to build relationship with that family who remained engaged with Safe Place for Youth. And they were in the Host Homes program for 6 months, and then they were housed in the community. And then they ended up working for Safe Place for Youth and became real advocates speaking to the public about the importance of the work that we're doing. They now have a young child, and it's really been meaningful to see them, come through the programs and give back in this way. And the young lady who was part of the program really said that this was especially meaningful for her, to be able to let young people know that there is potential on the other side, and just to stick with it and don't give up and value yourself, and the rest will fall into place.
It must feel good, the amount of growth that you've been able to bring to Safe Place to Youth.
Yeah, I think for us, being able to see that impact and reaching more young folks has been really meaningful. Year over year, we continue to increase the robustness of our services, deepen the quality of our work, and knowing that we can be a part of somebody's life for whatever period of time to help them stabilize and to be that launch pad. We only want to be in somebody's life as long as they need us, and the hope is that they develop the tools that they need to thrive out in the world.
Yeah. And each one of your, like you said, Inglewood with moms, that's got to be unique challenges, teenage moms that are pregnant.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the housing that we provide there is for up to 2 years, and we really try to help prepare young parents to be parents and to help support their children in meeting their developmental milestones. And it is an added layer because we're doing all the same things to try to prepare them for employment, for higher education, to find housing in the community, and to be parents to interrupt that intergenerational homelessness cycle.
Because it's so much different than where your drop-in center is, because you're right in the middle of Venice, which has a very bohemian lifestyle, right? It attracts it attracts youth.
Yeah. Venice certainly has a lot of artists, musicians that come through, and, they're in a different stage in their homelessness, often, having been unsheltered, still sometimes a higher level of crisis. And, when people move into housing, they're able to stabilize and to focus on, these really core components of, being able to thrive.
How have you, I also know that Venice has a very nasty opposition. Totally forgot about that. A very nasty opposition to homeless people and support.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, it is a unique challenge. And, I think we see, as you said, really polar sides of the issue. And our goal is to try to find a common ground. And that common ground is that homelessness is not good for anybody. It's not good for the housed community. It's not good for the unhoused community. And so helping people understand that we are ultimately working towards the same thing. And, here's a strategy to make that work. So it's funny you mentioned that, because this new building that we just reopened had lots of community opposition. It's right next to a school. And what we did was to invite the community in and have numerous community meetings to try to understand, the very specific issues or very specific concerns that they had, so that we could take those on. So one thing that we did was to bring in extra outreach workers, so that, if the concern was young people, being in the neighborhood, that we would have outreach workers to go meet them where they were and, encourage them to come to the site, encourage, them to get connected to services. And, one of the, really outspoken community members who came to the drop-in center open house said, "Oh, wow, you didn't realize you'd been open since the beginning of February. And, if we haven't noticed it, then things must be going well."
Right.
And so it's almost that, the fear is worse than the reality sometimes.
Well, and I did some work in Venice for Mike Bonin many years ago to help with the bridge shelter, which you guys are part of.
Yes.
It seemed to me that they didn't want, this is not a Venice thing. It happens across the country, where people believe that there's homeless people in their community, and if you build a shelter, more will come. Or if you build a shelter, that it will make everything worse. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, if you have homeless people there, that's where you need support.
Yeah.
And the Venice people didn't want any, and just the way Venice is, there's always going to be homeless people there.
Yeah.
Because the beach communities attract that. And we have seen, and I'm so glad that you brought up how you invited the community and you listened. We have seen as we have traveled, housing programs, housing first programs that are low barrier, right next to schools or playgrounds, and you wouldn't even know it, right? If you're going to solve homelessness in that particular community, you have to have homeless services in that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Venice Bridge housing really was a crucial resource for young people. It's the only shelter in West LA for young people. And it actually was closed by the city at the end of December. So again, we've been really trying to uplift the impact of that. But like you said, folks are already in the community. Right. And we were housing over 200 young people there each year. And so what we really tried to impart to the community is that's 200 people that are going to be in the same area without a roof over their head, without supportive services.
Oh, so we travel around a lot. I live in Los Angeles, but I'm not always here. And I knew that there was, it had a time frame to begin with. That's how they pushed it over, or that's how they got community approval, is that it was only temporary. However, like you said, you had 200 youth there that when you close it down, they have no place to go. Yeah. And I didn't even, I'm sad that it closed.
Yeah. We were too, and it felt really, particularly sad that it's the middle of winter in which it closed. Right. All the concerns that come with that. But we continue to fight and advocate for it. It's part of our strategic plan. We're going to make another one happen. We know that that's the need.
And that was the perfect site.
I know. Yeah. It worked really well. We were able to use bungalows for the young people's housing. So we didn't have to have such high concentration of folks. But, we really believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And, this is a real priority.
Yeah. We did 2 videos where we followed 2 people from the bridge housing to their new apartments.
Oh, lovely.
We did that several years ago, and there's more people that could have moved into apartments. However, the roadblock was housing.
Yep.
You got to have housing to move people. So it's streets, shelter, housing. And if you don't have the housing, then you're just warehousing people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many myths and misleading information out there. When people say, well, the interim housing doesn't translate to long-term permanent housing. Well, you have to have the affordable housing in order for people to exit interim housing. And I don't think people necessarily connect that.
Right, exactly. What are the challenges that you guys face as an organization working with youth?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's crucial in this moment is to ensure that there's youth-specific funding. There's been a real push to tuck youth homelessness back into the adult system, and it was a really hard-fought goal for us to ensure that there was a youth system, and so that's a big push of our advocacy right now. We're also, trying to cut off the pipeline from the child welfare system by offering a shelter where the Department of Child and Family Services can let us know this young person doesn't have a housing plan, their court date is coming up, and we can make a bed available for them to prevent them from ever having to experience homelessness. And so I think those are, some of the unique things about working with young people. Yeah. But like you said, community opposition is a big one. Also, we're primarily in West Los Angeles, and, the cost of providing services out there is, hitting a limit too for our organization. Right. So, we're challenged in that way to raise enough because we know there are young people there that need services.
Right. And as the leader, that burden falls on you.
I feel honored to, be in this seat, but it is certainly a challenge, and it does keep me up at night, trying to figure out, how do we make it work? How do we, pull the pieces together? But, it really does take a community to make it possible. And I'm super grateful to the team and all our supporters and our volunteers. We were a volunteer-led organization for many years, and it's been super crucial. And, I couldn't do it alone. No one person could do it alone. So Yeah, it takes all of us.
Yeah, people, there's a misunderstanding about CEOs on what the day-to-day is, and most of us have fallen into the role of fundraiser.
Yep, that's a big part of it. I would say that's, probably half the role.
Yeah. So what's the future? What's the future for SPY? What is SPY going to look like in 5 years? Now, I should preface it. We'd love to solve homelessness, especially youth homelessness.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, what does SPY look like in 5 years?
We hope to continue to be able to provide these wraparound, holistic supportive services to continue to ensure that there's housing along the continuum from shelter to permanent housing. We see ourselves growing across Los Angeles, just given the need and, our ability to do that. We've moved a lot more into the prevention and advocacy space and just recognizing that there was a gap there and that this is, really our opportunity to end youth homelessness is to build this awareness, to ensure that policymakers are aware and that we're building coalitions and working together.
One thing I've loved about your organization, and I think it's so important, there's a few others, is how your clients, the people you serve, the homeless youth, talk so highly about SPY. And I have a transgender friend, and he was very well connected to SPY. And he used to say to me all the time, when he was homeless in Venice, I said something to him that changed his life, and I couldn't remember. And the first time we met, I have this thing where I always, hey, where do you want to go eat? Let the person choose, and we took Levi out to eat. And I didn't know he was trans, and why I didn't remember is because I met him on Venice Beach as a woman. Mm-hmm. He speaks so highly of SPY. And I know from my time in Venice over the years how the kids adore Safe Place for Youth.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. We really do try to provide that affirming environment because we know that so many young people didn't have that in their early life, and that was one of the causes of their homelessness, whether they were kicked out or had to leave home for safety reasons. And, I think on the hard days, just being around the young people and seeing their vibrance and their hope and their, the potential there is really so inspiring.
Anything you'd like to add?
Thank you so much for creating this opportunity. I think that, where people can increase their understanding of, that this is a solvable problem, that, we can be here to support young people. That's really the message that we're trying to uplift is there is something that the community can do, whether it's volunteering, helping shift the narrative, contributing in whatever way possible, that this is something that it impacts everybody. And it's to everybody's benefit to solve youth homelessness.
How do people find you?
Our website is safeplaceforyouth.org. Folks can connect on the tab that says how to get involved, that shares more information about volunteer opportunities, the types of donations that we take, and that they can learn more about youth homelessness so that they can be advocates too.
Well, thank you very much for spending time with me.
Thank you for the opportunity.